Forests are part of our life. They protect us as we grow. They clean the air we breathe. They give us food, water, and health. They provide shelter, employment, and income. Look around. Can you imagine your life without them? On the 21st of March, think about our forests. Sustain them. They are our future.
Right, welcome to Hello Malaysia, and I am your host Suryati Sanusi, and you just watched a montage for our topic for today in conjunction with the International Day of Forest, and the theme we have for today is Forest for Community Livelihood. And in the studio right now I have Datuk Sri Dr. Abdul Rahman Abdul Rahim, the Director General of Forestry Department Peninsular Malaysia. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Right, and of course we are here to celebrate the forest, and people would usually take forest as it's just greeneries where we do our walks, probably full of timber and things like that, but they do not value our forest. And before we talk about the forest, let's talk about you a little bit, and because we had this chat before we started the show, so Datuk has apparently been with forestry since
1981.
Right, so that was...
I'm already about almost at 30 years or more in service.
Right, so you have seen changes in the department.
Of course.
So what makes you intrigued to be in forestry?
Okay, probably to begin with, one must appreciate that if you look around you, imagine just like the montage that you saw just now.
Right.
A world without forest. Just close your eye and imagine you are in the desert.
Right.
What do you get? You get nothing.
Hard to breathe.
Yeah, hard to breathe. No oxygen, no water, no
Heat.
nothing.
Yeah.
Suddenly, the next day you wake up and you see a forest around you.
Right.
How do you feel? You feel joy?
Refreshed.
Refreshed.
Right.
You see? How the forest so significant to the people.
Human being.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one thing that we have to say that in Malaysia, we are very opportune and very fortunate. Then our forest is not like any other forest in the world.
Why is that?
Because our forest is so unique. We are a tropical rainforest.
Okay.
Tropical rainforest, according to the definition, those forests are located between Tropic of Capricorn and Tropic of Cancer.
It sounds like your
in geography, yes. Now, there's a simple term of the... That means we are very fortunate that Malaysia is located within those range.
Okay.
And tropical forestry does contribute significantly to the world.
Right.
Now, other than tropical forestry, we do have like boreal forest that is on the upper top or bottom part of the world. And then in between, there's the temperate forest. Now, looking at the forest composition alone, that tropical forest is so dynamic, so complex. There are a lot of varieties of species of flora and fauna. Now, how do you compare with temperate and boreal?
Yes.
Then one must appreciate that our forest is so diverse in species. There are many things to say.
Right.
That's number one.
Okay.
Number two, they are very fortunate because almost like, according to the percentage, almost like 1/3 of the world forest is tropical forest.
Really?
Now imagine yourself.
Okay.
During the process of photosynthesis, where tree makes food for their life.
Right.
Now, tree absorb carbon dioxide.
Right.
Everyone hates carbon dioxide.
Yes, of course.
I'm sure you
we
don't know
breathe
that.
out carbon dioxide.
And you must know that carbon dioxide actually a greenhouse gases that contribute to the global warming. Now imagine a tree absorb those
gases.
Waste that you
we
breathe
waste out. Yeah.
Then it convert those carbon during the
oxygen.
process of synthesis into oxygen.
Right. We breathe in oxygen.
Then you breathe oxygen. Imagine you breathe oxygen. The science indicated that every single tree can provide oxygen for 4%.
Single tree?
Single tree.
Right.
A mature tree, of course, not a small tree.
Okay,
you have to go with
mature
tree. Now, going back to this, imagine tropical forestry play a role in photosynthesis, so do the temperate forest, so the forest. But because of the complexity and the diversity that we had in tropical forestry, and imagine in every day, you breathe in oxygen, you breathe out carbon dioxide.
Right.
Imagine, does that our tropical forest contribute to the people livelihood.
Right, it does.
Just because oxygen. I don't know in the future you don't have
we have
forest,
to buy.
we have to buy. Okay.
Buy air.
Now that's one thing. A group of tree make a tree stand. Of
Okay.
course, a group of tree stand make a forest.
Yes.
Now, you imagine a forest as home, and rightly mentioned in the montage, home means habitat. In science, we call habitat for flora and fauna. But not only that, within the home, you have facilities, services that the home provide.
Okay.
Water,
Right.
soil, fruits, leaf, anything.
Right.
Almost like in the simple term, the tropical forest is like a mega store, superstore.
Right, and it's free.
Yeah, it's free.
Okay.
Just imagine you go to any superstore,
Okay.
you want chocolate,
Fruits.
you see fruit. You want
Right.
fruit. Everything they have in tropical.
Right, right.
Of course, similar things so you have in some part of the world that is not tropical forest, is that temperate boreal, but very limited.
Okay.
It's just like you go to mega superstore, to
Okay.
superstore,
Right.
or daily superstore.
Specialty
They are superstore, but in
Right.
mega superstore, you have everything.
Right.
Then I come again. Malaysia very fortunate. We have this tropical forest.
Right. So how does the
Now-
forestry department come
okay.
in
Now,
maintaining?
in Malaysia, as in other part of the world, of course, the agency that associate and relate to duty of forestry must be Department of Forestry.
Yes.
Now, in Malaysia, we're fortunate that our forestry that already established way back in 1900. We started we are inherited from a British system.
I see.
Very fortunate
Okay.
in Malaysia. That's why our forest today still stand in our forest strong. Now, in 1900, we have the first British, of course, we call it conservator of forest. Okay? Since then, we already established by now almost like 114 years. Okay?
Okay.
And subsequently, when Malaysia earned its independence, then we have begin to have our local forester.
Okay.
Now, in order for you to manage the forest, you must be a forester, a
Okay.
professional forester.
Okay.
Now, in order for you to become a forester, you have to earn a degree called Bachelor of Science of Forestry.
Okay.
Now, forestry actually is a subject by itself. We call it the art and science. Even the planting tree. That's why the first term that we had in the world in terms of forestry, we call it silvic.
Which
In
means?
many of the Scandinavian countries, in particular in Europe, they don't call it the forester, they call it silvic.
Okay.
Silvic actually is a special term for silviculture. If you open any vocabulary or any dictionary, the only thing appeared there is silvic.
Silvic.
But of course, to make it common to the public, later on they call it a forester. Now,
Okay.
you have to earn a degree in
degree.
forestry to become a professional forester. Now, especially subject like tree physiologists, biologists, of course, subsequently later on come the forest mensuration and some other subject that complement to managing resources. So you have to have knowledge on this. Okay. Going back to the silvic, now looking at the tree in profile, you have a flora and fauna. See, it's home, but at the same time also you have other elements of landscape like
Okay.
rocks, river,
Yes.
name it. So looking at the so-called forest stand itself or a forest stand, you make a profile. Okay, the rural composition, especially in tropical forestry. Now you have to earn this knowledge. So in Bachelor of Forestry, you learn FOREST.
Right.
F for food, O for ornamental,
Okay.
R recreation. A very simple one.
Okay.
E environment, S is soil, and last the T is timber. As simple as that. So
Okay.
even the word forest
means
means something to the forest.
Right.
Now, therefore, in order to manage this so-called intricate relationship, we have to have science.
Okay.
That's why you have to earn at this degree.
Right.
Okay, below the degree, initial start, of course, you have the diploma.
Okay.
Now, being a forester, you must know the composition in mega store. It's just like you go to the sports store. You want to manage a sports store. You must know the element within the
Right.
the so-called store. Because each of the element have their own uniqueness.
Right.
At the same time, they interact. That's within the element. Even human beings do interact with the forest.
Of course.
So one of the things that you have to have knowledge. Without the knowledge, how can you manage the resources? Okay.
Right.
So every of these elements they have their own uniqueness. So after completion of forest, BH in forestry, now they call it your professional forester.
Okay.
Then again, in order for you to practice forestry, you have to subscribe to members as a Institute of Foresters Malaysia,
Okay.
or in short, IRIM. This is the association that we had in Malaysia.
Okay.
That for a person to practice forestry, you must become members to the IRIM.
Right. So
Now we are trying to bring in forestry bill,
right.
but we're still working hard on it.
How
but
many
at
members
least
do we have right now?
At the moment, well, I'm not the president,
Right,
I can't remember offhand.
Okay.
But we have more, at least, the practicing forester that are still serving in the department.
Okay.
Around numbers like 300 to 400. They are still working with the department.
Right.
While some of them already retired. Imagine from 1900.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, as a forester, okay, what do you really want to manage your forest?
Okay.
Now, actually, as I mentioned just now, right? Just for a simple public to understand, FOREST.
Right.
Okay, now, you have to have this knowledge that indicate that the forest can be managed for that purposes. Now, in today's world, in many years, as we see the montage now, provide shelter.
Yes.
Now, the forest itself already a shelter or habitat for
Lots
human
of,
beings. You can go, but at the same time, the material, say the timber. Now, you cut the trees and then you process the
Becomes
timber.
wood.
You can make furniture. You can make table. You can home.
A
So it
house.
provide shelter.
Yes.
Okay. Furthermore, even you can make what they call the boats for you to travel.
Right.
Or if you're very
Fishing.
fortunate, anything. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, it provide that timber. Now, year in, year out, forests have provided this timber as important.
Source.
Because from the timbers, they can use timbers as fuel. Now, before you have gases and whatnot
Yes.
for cooking, now you need timber. I mean, the life, the human life, actually, imagine if you don't have this source. Now, let's look at in tropical forestry alone. Okay? If you don't have timbers, I don't think you have a civilization.
Right.
That's most important. Okay, but year in, year out, all these year people are really totally dependent forest for timber. What actually the forest can also be managed for others.
Right.
So in this situation, in order to steer the so-called management, we formulate policy. We call it the national forest policy. Okay, while the departments evolve with time and focusing on certain elements of management of forest, what you want to manage for. Of course, I mentioned some top in the list is timber. Then the government say, oh, we need to formulate policy.
Okay.
What actually you want to manage our forest for?
And how
Would
to manage it?
and
Yeah.
we have to enhance.
Right.
We enhance how? So in the policy, it's clearly specified, saying that we must manage for forestry for all what it can offer, while at the same time utilize the sources. But one must not forget, we need to conserve.
Yes.
Yeah, there goes a word saying that to indicate how important is our forest. Actually, what we have today, we borrowed from the future generation. You know?
Right.
That sort of thing. I can't remember the right what do you call
Word.
that, the words. Going back to the forestry, the forest, you need to have policy.
Okay.
Now, in Malaysia, we are very fortunate because our government has got concern. Right? From 1900, we have been concentrating for timbers, for single product, and we realized that our forest can offer more than that. So the government said, okay, let us see what the forest can do. You need to do to manage the forest. So in order to express this policy, you need to have a National Forest Act.
Right.
Now, we need to have the act that can express explicitly.
Right.
What do you call it? To administer and manage our forest. Now, at the same time, who already taking part in this management?
Okay.
Now, in Malaysian situation, we are so unique that we have a federal and state government.
Okay.
Now, and according to the federal constitution, forestry and land estate matter. Now, how do you reconcile between federal government and the state government? Because they are so unique.
Yes.
So in Malaysian situation, we are so unique. We have a national land council,
Okay.
where this council is chaired by none other than our honourable deputy prime ministers, and the members of the land councils are respectively chief ministers of the states. Now, Malaysia have 14 states, so there are 14 states participate. This is where the federal government and the state government sit together.
Right.
Now, while we have the policy, we have the act, which later on the act, when it endorsed and implemented as enactment. Now, how do you move forward?
Right.
Malaysia as one single landscape. This is where this National Land Council sit together to formulate a standardization in policy. Now, say just now that we want to manage our forest for timber. What sort of regime you want to do?
Right.
Okay, because as I mentioned just now, tropical forest is so diverse. There are so many species. What kind of species you want to produce?
Right.
Of course, the timber as a raw material, it can generate downstream for any other wood-based processing industry. What sort of timber? So this is where the state government and federal government. Now, what they're taking place, of course, money is not everything. And everything's net money. Now, we need to generate income here.
Right.
Okay? Especially when those timbers are in the state listing.
Right.
Now, what did they do? Okay, they formulate a pricing scheme. Okay, now. So this is the process between the federal government and the state government sit together within the National Land Council.
Right.
Now, having said that, now, if you don't have this standardization, then each one of the state can, well, it's up to me to
manage my forest.
This is how we run our management in our country. Now, in order to ascertain that our products are sustainably produced from our so-called superstore, in Malaysia, we are very fortunate we adopted sustainable forest management practices. So this is a system where we have adopted year in, year out in our managing our resources.
Right, okay. We need to go for a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the system. So, so stay tuned to Hello Malaysia.
My precious little Nita, why did you leave me? How hard I try, my pain does not go away.
Papa! Papa!
My child has become a victim because of me.
Nita!
Pakcik, boleh saya tolong?
We cannot change the past, but we can protect our future if we act now.
Longkah batasan masa, mengupas isu semasa, menjadi saluran pelbagai suara. Segalanya baru dan benar di Berita Bernama TV.
Current issues, latest headlines, illuminating visuals. Everything right and now on Bernama News.
Welcome back to Hello Malaysia, and we're talking about forests in conjunction with International Day of Forests with Datuk Seri Dr. Abdul Rahman, the Director General of Forestry Department, Peninsula Malaysia. And right before we went for a break, you were talking about the system that you...
Sustainable forest management system.
Right. So probably you can tell us what the system is all about right now.
Now, I think because that I mentioned earlier on, that tropical forest is so significant.
Yes.
So the world established called International Tropical Timber Organization, ITTO.
Just for tropical?
Yes, tropical timber, to focus on the sustainability, assistance and management of this tropical forest. And within this ITTO, there are producer country, there are consumer country. And Malaysia happen to be the producer country.
Right.
And within the region, Malaysia is top in the list. And compared to our neighbors like Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines, name it around the ASEAN region. That means Malaysia is well recognized. Therefore, we're going back to this sustainable forest management system. The ITTO defined in a simple layman term, this sustainable forest management means you implement a management system for one or two management objective. As I mentioned, FOREST.
Right.
See, that means you can manage forest for timber alone or for any others. But one thing, you must produce what the forest want. For example, if you manage the forest for timber, then you must be certain at the end of your management position, you must produce a good timber.
Right.
If you want to manage your forest for water, for example, then you must manage your forest properly for
water.
So in so doing, we are very fortunate in our act under the section 10 of section 1, we already stipulated 12 functional classes. That means we can manage our forest for 12 purposes.
Wow,
in that sense.
Right.
So in other words, that is number one we want to be certain. Then from there, the forest will produce either the product or services.
Yes.
Okay, but you must not produce any negative, effect to your forest.
Right.
Mean to say that in simple layman term, while you manage your forest, you utilize whatever, but it must be sustainable.
Right.
Not only for today, but future generation.
Okay.
That's a good part that Malaysian practice this.
Okay.
Now that is called sustainable forest management. So within the sustainable forest management, element of sustainability there are three main important elements one must observe. One, it must be economically viable. Secondly, it must be environmentally sound.
Okay.
Third, it must be socially accepted. So in any of our forest management, for whatever purposes you want or management objective that you want, based on the Section 10(1) of our National Act, you can manage your forest for timber, for wildlife,
Like
for water, for soil stability,
Yes.
for example, like for how do I say, any other purposes.
Right.
The element of sustainability must be there.
Okay.
That's why in tropical forest management, the element of sustainability must not be overlooked.
Right.
So that's why I call it sustainable forest management.
Okay.
So going back to say now, people say talking about timber.
Yes.
Now before you could harvest the timber, we must understand in Malaysia situation there are two categorization of forest.
Okay.
One, forest we gazetted under the National Forest Act. We call it a permanent reserve forest.
Okay.
Those areas are gazetted under the National Forest Act and is under the custodian of Forest Department.
Okay.
Okay. The other one is non-permanent reserve forest. I say so because those areas are not gazetted under National Forest,
Okay.
especially like state land forest and alienated land forest.
Alienated. Okay.
These two, state land forest and alienated forest, are governed under National Land Code.
Okay.
So mean to say that the forest that we manage is actually only the permanent reserve forest.
Right.
So in any incidences, if you see people cutting timbers, one thing the public must ask, is that permanent reserve forest or is it the non-permanent reserve forest?
Right.
Now if you're your own land, say you are own land, we call it
Yes.
alienated land forest, you can cut your timbers,
Right.
no problem.
Right.
But the moment you cut the timbers and for your own consumption,
Right.
and you did not do any transaction or sell the timber,
Right.
it's okay.
Okay.
But the moment you sell your timbers,
Right.
those timber are estate asset.
Oh.
That's why the state government must
Okay.
earn revenue.
Okay.
Because as I mentioned just now under the Article 74(2) of Federal Constitution, forestry and then the state matter.
Yes.
So the state must earn the revenue.
I see.
So public out there, if my request, if you see such activities, one thing we have to observe.
Is
This is
it?
why in forest department we are trying our best abilities to do a lot of
Research.
public awareness.
Okay.
That our forest, in our situation, we have these two main categorization. So mean to say that only permanent reserve forests are under the
State.
purview and custodian of forest department.
Right.
While the outside, then that the state land forest and the alienated forest is under the purview. Now we are now advocating if we could adopt the best practice that we had in our permanent reserve forest to be implemented also in the state land forest and alienated. Of course, those are voluntary, but within the PRF is mandatory because you are subjected to the National Forest Act.
I see.
That means you have to implement sustainable forest management properly.
Okay.
So in so doing, while we are members of ITTO at Police State, we are also subscribing to timber management certification.
Okay.
Because certification actually is a market access. Mean to say that we subscribing to the ITTO organization. In ITTO says that any timber that marketed or any product or timber that marketed into the
sold.
market must be sourced from sustainable forest management area.
I see.
See, that means
Okay.
they will call it forest management certification.
Okay.
Now, under this process, since Malaysia is active members to the produce state under the ITTO, ITTO formulate, they call it a compliance standard. Okay, so they call it the third party assessor. And Malaysia have this scheme. We call it the MTCS, Malaysian Timber Certificate Scheme.
Okay.
In which they outline the element for you to implement. So if you fail, you could not be issued any certificate.
Certification. Okay.
Now, in our situation, for example, in Peninsular Malaysia, I have to speak in Peninsular Malaysia
Yeah.
more than Sabah and Sarawak because I'm the Director General of Forestry Peninsular Malaysia. Okay, in our situation, we have about 12 states. All states, we call it timber producing state, except Perlis, Penang, Federal Territory, Kuala Lumpur, and Malacca. They don't have a permanent forest estate that is permanent reserve forest that
Under
actively
the department.
no, that is under the department,
Okay.
but that is not actively do any harvesting.
I see.
On the contrary, well, other states, another 8 states, they have this permanent forest which is actively involved in timber harvesting. That is, I mentioned now, if you manage for your forest mainly for timber production. On the contrary, within those
States.
National Act, there are another 11 functional classes. Okay, in today's world, water is important. So within the permanent forest, we also manage our forest for water. Within that, we call it water catchment forest.
Yes.
We set aside, and to date, it's about a total about almost like 90,000 hectare from out of 4.9 million hectares of our
Land.
permanent reserve forest.
Right.
Permanent forests are already set aside for water catchment forest. Now, just to reflect the situation in Peninsular Malaysia, we have a total areas of permanent area under forest about 5.8 million hectare, of which 4.9 is already gazetted as a permanent reserve forest. So while the rest is state land forest and LTR, which is for land bank for development. Land forest which is open for forest oil palm plantation, for example.
Yes.
Forest open for infrastructure, roads, school, building and whatnot. Those are, I call it just now, non-permanent reserve forest, which is subject to the national land code. While about 4.9 is managed under sustainable forest management. Mean to say that in Malaysian situation, we need not to worry because the government already set aside some areas for future generation that call it permanent reserve forest, while the other one is for land development bank. So going back to the permanent reserve forest, I mentioned under the custodian of forest department, we continue to embark on the sustainable forest management practices. Okay. Earlier on I mentioned you manage your forest for timber. Then the second one I mentioned water catchment. Now you need, because the forest serve as sponges.
Yes.
When it rains, the water is stored in the forest, and then it flows into the water bodies, rivers, stream or not, and of course downstream, and then taken over by some company and process and sell it.
Right.
Okay. So that means in the future, if you are serious enough, okay, we want the public to pay, because without the forest, then you couldn't have water.
Right.
Now imagine then the regime for forest management for water production will not be the same like managing the forest for timber. But sometimes you can have both.
Right.
An area managed for both. So we call it compatibility.
Okay.
For example, like keeping the forest for wildlife sanctuaries.
Okay.
Now imagine in today's world, if you don't take care of your forest, and these are habitat for animal, I'm sure the public out there have seen some incidences that some animal being knocked down by cars.
Right.
Why? Because their home being disturbed. That's why in permanent reserve forest, we can also manage our forest for wildlife. So if you can take care our forest well, then you don't have an animal-human conflict.
Okay.
And because of the rampant development in Malaysian situation, particularly, especially in Malaysia, okay, there are elements of forest fragmentation. This is what we don't want to happen. Okay. If you happen to be there are fragmentation, forests are separated by roads, by any. So imagine those animals. So they try to cross over and suddenly knocked down by. That's why we must properly manage the forest also for.
Development is important, but we have to manage it properly.
And of course, the other one is you can also manage forest for biotech, source of gene pool.
Yes.
If you could see many of our modern what we call it medicine, okay, the ingredient you have to accept that is originated from the forest.
From the tropical.
Yes, even the Panadol. See?
Okay.
Panadol was originated, the ingredients from the forest. And so it's a tropical forest.
Okay.
Now, of course, not from our Malaysian forest, but from some Amazonian forest. But it's the situation, tropical forest. Then how do you manage your forest? Then that means you can manage your forest for source of biotech. And today, the herbal industry, the pharmaceutical industry are relying raw material from the forest.
Right.
So these are some of the elements that, as I indicated just now, Our forest, a tropical forest, is like a mega store.
Yes.
For you is to how to manage and to get these elements or sources of raw material, and for you to convert it into economic activity.
Right.
But while these are some examples that I mentioned to you, we must not forget the element of environment.
Okay.
Because sustainability, I mentioned, a three element. You must take care of the economic aspect. You must not fail to look at the environment, and you must not fail also to forgo the social aspect. Now let's look at environment element today. Today, world, we are encounter a climate change. It's warm. Because
if it's warm, it's warm. It's raining, it's flooding.
The world temperature increases because of human anthropogenic activity. So much so that water, excess water, because iceberg in North Pole,
it's melting.
Now, how do forests play a role in climate change? It's carbon sequestration, as I mentioned now. See, if you can create more forests and the forest becomes stable, it can absorb so-called carbon dioxide, which among others the greenhouse gases, and then we make the environmental aspect more prevail. Now, this is also in the environment. In some areas that is slope that is very sensitive to landslide, or any part of our landscape that is critical to environment. We can do more tree planting. Then we call it forest dedicated for soil stability. So those are element of environment. And further to it, as I mentioned now, when the country develop, some country become industrialization. You see some part of the world, the developed nation, they have lost their forests because their industry is emitting so-called gases like methane. Now, how do you stabilize back this? And as I said, we are very fortunate in tropical areas. We have those forests, while carbon being absorbed, even some other gases also being disseminated in similar situation. And furthermore, the forest is green. See? Now, these are some of the important contribution that forests give to the community livelihood. So, other than that, for forest for social aspect, some people believe you stay in the forest more younger. Or in some part of the world, they stay in the forest. And even in our local station, the indigenous people still rely on their living from the forest. So, to put in a simple nutshell, that forest is so significant, it's so important. And therefore, people of you must celebrate the International Year of the Forest. Now, going back to the International Year of Forest, it was started long time ago as a World Forestry Day. The United Nations, Malaysia being the sovereign state of the nation in the UN, we celebrated first World Forestry Day. Now, at that time, the world want to decide which date. Now, why 21st March was selected? Now, because many of world inhabitants stay in the northern hemisphere. So, 21st March is the day where the first green budding appeared. There are 4 seasons, right? There are spring, there are summers, there are autumn and winter. So because the United Nations in northern hemispheres, so they decided that 21st March, because 21st March for an event where the first green budding appeared for northern hemisphere. So that's why 21st March. Now, what is the significance of this 21st March? It's just like the starting of life, living. Okay, it's just like if you sow a seed, the first budding come out. So after a long winter or dormant winter, all three, imagine in temperate you see no leaf, no flower. Suddenly on the 21st March, and the first green budding come out. That shows how significant this 21st March is all about. Now I hope the public by now will appreciate why it's 21st March.
31st
Now,
March
why is it a significant event? As I mentioned just now, that the forest contribute to the community livelihood. People rely on forests for many things, for the economic aspect of it, and environment of it, and social of it. That's why the United Nations decided to change. More concern in 2008, they decided to focus more on International Year of the Forest rather than World Forest. The date remains, but this time they want to give more focus to tell the world that in the world we have tropical forestry, we have temperate forestry, we have border forestry. Let's alone see all these forest types that contribute to the community livelihood. Even in Malaysia's situation, we are very fortunate within the tropical forest. We have 3 major forest types. We have a dry inland forest, we have a peat swamp forest,
Okay.
and we have a mangrove forest. Now,
Yes.
generally speaking, mangrove forests are located from 0 sea level to something like 15 meters above sea level.
Okay.
So from the 15 meters above sea level, go up to say around 350 meters above sea level, those are peat swamp forests.
Okay.
And from the 350 meters above sea level and upward into
Above?
as high as 1,500 meters above sea level, those are called dry inland forests. Now, in terms of proportionate, in Malaysian situation, about 95% are dry inland forests. The 5%, 3% for the mangrove, and 2% about peat swamp.
Okay.
Now, these peat swamp are located in between the coastal forest and the dry forest because
Okay.
they use for what do you call it? The buffer zone
Okay.
for the intrusion of salinity from
From
winter
the
from the sea. That's why you look at the Malaysian situation, tropical forest, though is one tropical forest,
Yes.
but we have 3 major forest types.
I see.
Okay. So going back to this concern,
Right.
the United Nations decided to change from the World Forestry Day into
Right.
International Day of Forest. Now, what is significant? What the significant as is reflected by the first green budding is to plant more tree,
Okay.
turn green,
Right.
because by having this green as reflected during the process of synthesis, it does is living, right?
Right.
So then we begin to use now from 208 to now and probably
To the future.
to the futures.
We use the date
International Year
21st.
of the Forest.
On the 21st of March. Okay,
Yeah.
we need to go for another short commercial break.
Yeah.
And when we come back, we'll talk more on forest right here on Hello Malaysia.
Terima kasih.
Sama-sama.
Terima kasih. Sama-sama. Terima kasih. Sama-sama.
Terima kasih.
Sama-sama.
Terima kasih.
Sama-sama.
Sama-sama.
Satu cerita, satu bangsa, satu Malaysia.
And welcome back to Hello Malaysia with me and Datuk Sri Dr. Abdul Rahman from the Forestry Department, Peninsula Malaysia. And we're talking about forest in conjunction with International Day of Forest. And I know for the theme of International Day of Forest is Forest for People, but you decided that it's not enough for us here in Malaysia. You've changed it to something else. What is it, Datuk?
In fact, when the United Nations decided to put the theme so that you will focus more on forestry, they said forest for people. Now, if you say forest for people, in our situation, we already had year in, year out to celebrate the
The day.
World Forestry Day. And I would be more focusing in our situation so that we can understand and more dearest to us.
Okay.
So we decided to transform or focus it to a forest for community livelihood.
Okay. Why is that?
So as I mentioned earlier on in my deliberation, that forest actually is not for timber, for everything.
Right.
From the forest you can does everything. In fact, it's source of living, for shelter, for food, for anything. Even aspect of economic come in, aspect of environment and thing, and aspect of social aspect come in. So therefore that, if you do without the forest, I don't think we can live.
I don't think so.
I don't so.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Right.
So that's why in today's world, we are so pleased that everybody begin to appreciate the forestry.
And aware,
You see,
right.
That's why you see in any incidences, in any event of say flood, say you see sedimentation going on, the first thing, forestry.
For the forest.
So if people ask me, as a year forestry, I'm happy and pleased that now everybody is opening their eye.
Right.
You remember a case where tsunami came in.
Right.
No one cares about coastal forestry, mangrove. Suddenly when the tsunami hit our coastal, they say, oh my God, we are very fortunate. We have a mangrove forest.
Right.
Similarly, that's why we putting more emphasis for forest for community livelihood. So that is dearest to you.
Okay.
If I don't take care of my forest, what happened to the climate?
Okay.
I get warmer. What happened to oxygen that I breathe? What happened to the water? What happened to that? That's why we decided to this.
Okay.
But also, above all, the main event of this international forest is to plant tree.
Okay.
Because from a tree, it become a forest stand.
Right.
From a stand, become a forest.
So how can
if
I be
everyone,
a part of the planting?
now the coming one,
tree?
we're going to celebrate it, at the national level in Kedah.
Okay.
We're going to take turns.
Okay.
This year around, we're going to celebrate in 31st March in Kedah. Of course, the main event is to invite people to plant.
Right.
So that is to mark the 21st March. In any of the day, you can plant.
Okay.
What you need is to tell us whether you want to plant your home,
All right.
you want to plant the area that you want. You tell us, we can provide a plant.
Okay.
Or sometimes
Okay.
you want to plant your own trees. You come to us, request for advice how to plant. We can provide. So the forest department is calling the public. Come on, let us. While we are concerned about the timber harvesting, we want people to come forward. Also, let's plant more trees.
Right.
Turn it green. Trees. It's not only herbaceous plant. We want the trees. While we are planting the tree, we must not forget to sow some other. So we call it a planting by landscape. You can plant big trees, small trees or not. So that what the forest is all about. We have a big tree or not.
And like you mentioned, one tree will contribute to 4 people
so
of us.
Imagine,
if
imagine the whole of our land, whether they are open land, area which are suitable planting, we start to plant more trees. And you see what the forest can do wonders.
Right.
Does it give wonders to your livelihood too?
And also environment as well.
I'm sure.
Right.
So that's why recently in anything happen, people always associate the forestry.
Right.
For example, the flood.
Okay.
You see the media.
Yeah,
the media is
I
talking
think
about
we need to
the
discuss
first
on that
thing they say,
matter.
you see, because of SS.
Right.
Okay, as I mentioned earlier on, the forest, there are permanent reserve forests, there are non-permanent reserve forests. Now, as I mentioned also just now, the non-permanent forests constitute of state land forests and alienated forests.
Okay.
These are land bank for development. While we are keeping our forest good, PRF, which I mentioned about 4.9 million hectares, already set aside. And even the logging process are proper under the sustainable management. All the matured trees are extracted out and they are called selective logging. While on the other side, the non-permanent forests are land bank for development. Of course, they clean it, they cut it. For example, you want to open for oil palm plantation, they chop out the tree, clear. But in forestry, in the state, for example, before those areas could be open for other land development program, those timber trees must be removed. So the process of timber harvesting taking place. Now, what happened? The public always say, "Oh, timber harvesting is taking place."
Right.
But they do not know the timber harvesting in the permanent reserve forest is not the same as timber in the outside of permanent reserve forest.
Okay.
So when they do this land clearing or land conversion, this is where the trouble comes. Sometimes the land development project proponents on it, they forgot to retain their buffer zone.
Okay.
I think you see some of the projects, they even closer to the water body. There's no buffer zone. So in actual fact, they must respect the law. Now in legislation, we have a lot of law.
Okay.
The Forestry Act, the Environmental Act. In Malaysia, we have the law.
Right.
But why it still happen? I think that's why we call it
lack of enforcement.
Yeah, enforcement probably.
Right.
And also awareness and people commitment. And we must not forget that Malaysia will be a developed nation by 2020.
Right.
What will our situation then? In the forestry, I will ask myself.
Okay.
What will forestry in 2020? That's why by now I must be certain that our management must be taking place properly. Must be taking place in the best to our ability, in the best to our knowledge. So while the forest area outside the forest are open for land development, be it for infrastructure, road and whatnot, we must keep also our forest. There you are, we have the permanent reserve forest, which I mentioned now in Malaysian, in the Peninsular Malaysian situation, which I mentioned now about 5.8 million hectare is our forest under cover or land under forest cover. About 4.9 million hectare already set aside for permanent reserve forest. So mean to say that we need not to worry. Now, what happened recently? There are excess rain, excess water. Now, some of these timbers already cut for harvesting, whether they are from permanent reserve forest or from the outside forest, and you are caught by surprise or sudden water level rises. And suddenly the timber is floating. Even the timber from some part of the mill also floating. And the one, I think they didn't have time. They will not be alerted. If they will be alerted that there will be a flood, I'm sure they will be attempt to tie the law. Now, if you recall, in Sarawak, there are timber travelling on the transported on a river. Imagine those timbers are tied to one another. And imagine in that situation, in our situation in Malaysia, that hit flood recently, all of a sudden we are caught by surprise. And those timbers from the mill just floating and it goes out. But of course, the timber from the forest is deeper in the forest. I don't think some of the timber that we harvested and they put in the temporary log pond or log yard are floating also. Probably they are caught in between of the tree. But the one that appeared in some city, they saw, the timber suddenly hit the bridges. And suddenly they say, there's some logging activity going on up there.
Illegal, they say illegal logging activity.
Of course. And some of the timber that you see, they are tagged inside. Tagged on the timber. So what was, it's some of the timber that come from the mill that they already transported prior to the flood incident, and they are parked in the mill, and suddenly they are caught by a flood and they float. That's the one. Number two, so there are also land clearing activities for agriculture purposes, which also caught by surprise. Suddenly a flood come in, and they got no time to set aside, and those debris go along and hit. And at the same time, also, there are also activities that are undertaken not fully compliance to the local regulation. Probably they have failed their EIA, or they have failed to keep their buffer zone, and suddenly water come and hit, and the sedimentation cause and flows into the river or the pond. Now imagine those water body get shallow, and you have excess water. Where do the water goes? Of course, go to the cities, they go to the town, everything. So I mean, incident of flood in Malaysia is already part of our life. But it's happened that this year round, the volume of water, so, and then even the excess water when we go to the sea, there also excess water in the sea, so they hit back. Okay. Now, what I want to tell the public here, in any incidences, one must not be panic. Okay. But of course, at the same time, one also must not feel that this is due to our own activity too. If you feel, that's why there's a statement says, the world is enough for everyone once, but the world is not everyone agrees. Now, if you are really sincere and you want Malaysia to be a safe place to stay, I mean, everyone have to abide with the rule. If you feel that you commit something that again rule, you should feel guilty. So going back to this situation that they relate flood to forestry, to a certain degree, yes, but not the main contributors. This is a result of unsystematic land development, or fail to abide the regulation.
By the rules.
But prior to the flood, we are caught by surprise. You fail to abide the regulation, and suddenly you happen to be like this. If you're prior informed, I don't think you can see the timber float around. But there are acquisition, people say, there's logging activity going on upstream during the flood season. Come on, man. How do people go in? I don't think heavy machine can go in during the wet season. Even it got stuck. Even in our situation, we don't allow people to do logging during wet season. In certain months, there are wet season. Even if you go to the forest, the logging route is so messy, and then the truck and whatnot cannot move because they're stuck. So even that alone, we advise. That is within the boundaries of the forest. So if you happen to outside the forest, what can I do? What can we say? Because development got to move forward. And they already clean and cleared the land. So going back to these areas outside boundary forest, so prior to any development, so those timber must be removed. Then after that, the forest government will issue, they call it the CJ Pembebasan Hutan. That means, how do I translate to English? That there's no other timbers that have economic values left. That means they already removed and extracted, and that timber sold for government revenues. Now, then only this area will be ready for development. So, timber harvesting is undertaking there. They come back to this situation that you mentioned, the illegal logging. Of course, some even that in the legal situation, if you did not abide or strictly adhere to what they call the regulation, it's just like you traveling on the highway. There's a speed limit, say 120. You're driving a Ferrari, I'm driving a Proton. Normally you can see from the car itself, you Ferrari, definitely you got a lot of money than me. But we're traveling on the same highway. And suddenly, everybody slow down. Why? Because they're AES. AES said, if you exceed 120 kilometer, you'll find someone. Suddenly, both of us traveling on the same road, and you happen to be Ferrari, you go faster. Faster more than 120. Suddenly, the policeman stop you in front. Say, okay, stop. Okay, let me check your license. What did he say? You check your license. Okay, suddenly you check your license, you got legal license, and then you got a ticket because you're speeding. And this Proton fellow also, why you slow? Let me see your license. Suddenly, the Proton fellow say, oh, I'm traveling below the speed limit. But what happened was, even two drivers along the way, when the policeman asked, did you have a license? He said, none. So you commit an offense. So me to say that, if those drivers obeying the law, this what we call
things
won't happen. So similarly in our situation in land development, if you are strictly follow the regulation, you follow what the condition and whatever licensing condition, be it under legal or non-legal, what more illegal, I'm sure this thing won't happen. But what happened now? Everybody become to accuse one another.
Especially to the forestry department. When they say, you guys are not looking at the illegal logging, and you can see those are the evidence that you can see all the woods are floating around the river. So how do you? I mean, what's the outcome from this? How do you?
A good lesson learned.
One
good lesson learned that I feel as a DG of forestry, that I know that now the public is more concerned about forestry. Do you think so? All this, it's just like the tsunami hit our coastal line. Then we realize that mangrove forest is important. Then after that, suddenly people talk about mangrove forest, and people join us to join planting. Similarly, in our situation, that's why International Forest that we want to celebrate, to tell the public, come on, let's join together, hold the rule, for the regulation, let us plant more trees.
By saying that, we are almost to the end of the program, and I'll give this floor to you. What would you like to advise the public, especially on International Day of Forest, or what they can do on daily basis to make sure that we stay green to the audience?
I think one thing for sure that I'm pleased now, as I mentioned now, that Malaysian citizens are more concerned now. So that's a good lesson learned. While the tsunami teaches experience on coastal forest, and today the dry inland forest. Now people become more concerned, and soon when the fire hit the peat swamp forest, people will concern more. Mean to say that the public mission. So if you're concerned and know this area is being disturbed, give your contribution. Come voluntarily, join us to green the area. Number one. Number two, to become ears and eyes. Tell us to help our enforcement.
If
if
you see
they
any suspicious.
So we have this online complaint system to our website. You can visit our website, forestry, especially in Malaysia. Third, of course, you must be sincere. Most important, sincerity. Let us work. If you love our forest, whoever citizen, right from the top to the bottom, let us do it properly. And of course, in conjunction with the International Forest, let us celebrate at least in the 365 days or one day. We love our forest and start doing tree and plant it properly and with purpose. With purpose. You cannot just plant tree and without no purpose. So you must plant tree with intention.
All right. Thank you so much, Datuk, for being with us and talking about what forest is all about. And thank you so much for tuning in to Hello Malaysia. And until we meet again real soon, with that, I'm Surati Sanusi. Goodbye.